Welcome to Navigating Your Retirement. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore, and it's early in the morning, but yes, the man is here, our host, the man with the plan, Travis Chance. How are you today, Travis?
Tony, I am surprisingly, thanks to CS2, well rested this morning. So
That's good.
that is that. I actually took it a little early last night and woke up bright eyed and bushy tailed this morning. So I'm good.
That's awesome.
Little calf to get you going.
Yep.
I need to start sending some of these to maybe some Black Rifle or maybe see if I can get some sponsorships.
There you go. Yeah. Well, we could get CS2 and Black Rifle Coffee
There you
Company.
go.
Yeah.
Brought to you by.
I saw, I was in the store, wife and I had to run some errands, and I saw Black Rifle tall cans in the coolers by the
I have
checkout.
not tried those yet.
I haven't either.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared. I'm gonna be honest with you.
I have not tried those.
It's kind of like meeting your hero. You never want to meet your hero because you never know.
You
if it's
love
gonna,
their
yeah,
coffee, but now that
it's
they're
like,
branching out and getting popular,
Yeah, I don't want to go too far.
slow your roll. Slow your roll.
Go
Stick
with
to
what
what
works.
you know.
Yeah,
Stay with what you know.
yeah.
Travis, last week, speaking of all this, you and we talked about Gen X and some retirement challenges Gen X faces, which I was listening to you to every word I was hanging on because that's me. In fact, I'm on the older end of Gen
You're the
X.
tip of the spear.
I'm the tip. I'm just going in. I'm trying to hit the water.
Yep.
I'm trying to hit the water as straight and as smooth as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Gen X, Tony, we spend so much time focused on baby boomers. We spend so much time focused on the older generation that is aging into retirement or in retirement, maybe mid 60s, some early 60s, but we don't spend a lot of time on Gen X. And you and I, believe it or not, we are not spring chickens anymore. And I know you may think otherwise, but let me just tell you from what stares back at the mirror for me every morning, I am understanding, my age is becoming somewhat of an issue. So I get it. I am no longer, as George Strait says, he still feels 25 most of the time. But we are not 25 anymore, right?
What?
The troubadour, George Strait.
Yep. I know George Strait. Yeah.
So we now have to start getting serious about our retirement because, for years and years, it was one of those things where it was like, it'll one day it'll be here and, we're gonna plow forward. And we've talked about in the past, life happens and you get caught up with kids and the accumulation side and your career and it seems like there's always something that takes precedent over doing real serious committed financial planning for long term for your retirement, because it's never going to get here, right? It's 20, 30, 40 years off. You're like, that's not going to be something I got to worry about. Well, guess what? I'm less than 17 years this year from 65. I'm approaching it rapidly. You are 60, right? You're 60 this year. You're 5 years away from 65.
Yeah.
Not saying 65 is the magic number for everybody, but it's kind of a target for most people, right?
I'm hoping to make it to 67 or 70 before.
There you go. So yeah, we all have our different targets, but what we all share is the fact that at some point, and we mentioned the vacation comment last week about, I talked about the gentleman I recommended to his coworker. You probably need to spend more time planning for your retirement this year than your vacation, because we typically plan more for our vacations and retirement goes by the wayside, or we just feel like it's just set it and forget it. I'm just putting money away and that's just going to be it. But that's not the case. Because as we talked about last week, and I'll just touch on some of the issues that we started with, a lot of Gen Xers feel like they've started too late. Maybe they didn't prioritize retirement early enough, and they feel like there is just an insurmountable obstacle. They can't get over it. They don't know how they're going to be able to make up all that time that they missed in the next maybe 10 to 15, maybe 20 years. And the one thing that we talked about is just making sure that you got to start.
Yeah.
If you can start, and basically getting close is better than missing it completely. You don't want to just completely walk away and throw your hands up, because it's not going to turn out well.
Mm.
And a lot of that is also led by the fact that there's a meaningful savings gap between where Gen Xers feel like they read all these articles and, where should I be? How much should I have? Okay, I'm X age. I should have $1 million according to Market Watch, or I should have, 750,000 according to Barron's, or wherever you get your information. So, these are all things that play to our psyche, and don't encourage us. And that's why I wanted to emphasize this over last week and this week of, guys, hey, you're with us today. You can start today. If you're already in the process, great. If you're ahead of the game, good for you. That is terrific. But at the end of the day, Gen X is really playing at a disadvantage, because a couple things. Number one, what has Gen X had to deal with? Well, in your retirement universe, so to speak, we've had the great financial crisis. We've had 2022. We had 2018. Couple really, really challenging markets. We had COVID. I mean, we've not had the best of situations. Now,
No.
same time, markets have done really well. And if you have invested during that time, you probably did really spectacular if you stayed the course and stayed invested. But that's really where we need to go today, is from a behavioral issue, Tony. I think a lot of Gen Xers, if you were in the market and you saw the recoveries, you're probably not in the boat that we're about to talk about. But if you're in that boat of trying to play catch up, and maybe you're starting fresh in your, say, late 30s, early 40s, maybe even mid 40s, then you're probably sitting there wondering, like, hey, I'm waiting. Maybe I should wait a little bit. Maybe the next shoe's about to drop, right? When's the next 2008 crisis? When's the next, whatever crisis? And maybe that's when I'll buy in. And if you've done that over the last, say, 4 or 5 years, you have missed out on a tremendous amount of return. Now, the problem is, Tony, none of us are like Marty McFly and and Doc Brown. We don't have a time machine where we can go back to 1985 and buy Apple or Microsoft, right? It's already
Scott.
It's great Scott. It's already gone, right?
Yeah.
So the thing I want to talk about this morning is the fear of market risk, and how inflation is also working against some of the Gen Xers, and maybe things that we should think about as we go forward. So, there's right now, and a recent survey showed over 50% of Gen Xers fear a significant market downturn in the near future. 20% say they don't feel confident about investing right now. 70% say inflation is directly impacting their ability to save. And I get all that, because it's something that's on the very tip of our tongue and the front of our mind every single day. Inflation specifically, because I feel it just like you feel it. We've joked and kidded around about, what it costs for us. It's almost like we got to take out a home equity loan every time we go to Costco now, because the kids eat everything that's got berry attached to it, and those things are freaking $50 a flat. It feels like strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, whatever. But inflation continues to erode our confidence, and then continues to erode the ability to actually save, or let our paychecks start to filter over to that retirement income, or a retirement plan, because we're having to use it just to maintain our standard of living. So I get it. But one of the things that we talked about was, even if you're not putting in the maximum, right? Maybe you're not putting into your 401k the full, 10 or 12 or 15% that maybe you might want to.
Maybe you're
At,
still at the default
at,
3%.
at
That's not good.
least go up to the maximum to get the
Yeah.
maximum match.
You gotta get the full match. If your
Most
company matches 6%, you gotta be putting in at least 6%.
or Tony, a lot of companies now, because obviously with the testing rules, a lot of companies are safe harbor. You have to put in 5% to get 4. Well,
Yeah.
hear me out. If you put in 5%, yes, I get it. I understand 5% is still 5%, but you're almost, for government math, you're almost doubling your investment. Even if you just took that money, which I'm not recommending you put it in cash, but even if you just put it in all cash in that account, you're almost doubling your money every single paycheck, because if you're putting in 5 and they're putting in 4, that is essentially that is a snowball
Yeah.
effect for you. If nothing else, you just put it in the safest investment vehicle, which I don't recommend. But if you do, that's still a huge benefit. That's a huge windfall.
Yeah.
And I think that's also when I say, and I kid about people sitting or putting their money in cash or maybe conservative investments because they're worried about the next market correction. I would also tell you this. If you're just starting out and your time horizon is still 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you need to be using this as a starting point and hope that volatility comes or rears its ugly head. Why? It's because, folks, dollar cost averaging, you're looking to buy over the next 20 years, and you do want a pullback at some point, if you think about it, because you want to be buying those shares at a reduced price. You want to be buying that share of the S&P. Let's just say you're buying the S&P. You want to be buying that S&P when it hits 5,000. Hope it doesn't, but let's say it does. 5,000 or 5,500 or 6,000. Because, folks, that's how you really start to amp up your retirement savings. You can't just put it in cash or put it in fixed income or bonds. It is better than doing nothing, but it is going to be challenging to hit your target goal.
Yeah.
You
have to
need
have
that.
some in growth
Yes.
and something that's going to take advantage of compounding interest. Yeah.
And Tony, we do help quite a few companies manage their 401ks. We are their on-site education representative. And I can't tell you how many times I have conversations on small pullbacks, 5, 6, 7, 10% pullbacks in the market, where people call and say, "Hey, Travis, is it time to go to cash now?" No. No, do not go to cash.
No.
Right? Because they see, they feel like they can time the market, and they see these rips or these dips, and they think, "Oh my goodness, well, I need to do this, or I need to." No, sometimes the best thing you can do is nothing.
Yes.
Because if you try to time the market, you have to be right twice. You got to be right on the way out and the way back in. Sometimes, I'm not going to say that it's not completely undoable. You may be able to accomplish that. Who knows, right? Maybe you're Warren Buffett Jr. and you didn't even know it.
Yeah, but all the research shows and the data shows that's not what ends up happening.
Over time,
most individual investors end up losing.
It's kind of like doubling down whenever, or you just keep letting it ride whenever you're playing craps or playing blackjack in Vegas. And you hit a hot streak and you're like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just let it keep putting it out there because I've hit the last 3 or 4 hands." Well, just like basketball, and Tony, we talked earlier, we didn't mention it, but my bracket is now busted.
My bracket is busted as well.
Duke, thank you for that 1-point loss. Great game, by the way, UConn. But we have the hot hand theory, and we feel like that emotional roller coaster that we were on, we see the market go down or up, and we feel like we can track that, or we can trade that. And a lot of times that's a fallacy. You can't do that. Not historically. You look back, it's going to be really difficult to do over and over and over. So we wind up shorting ourselves because we don't stay the course, and we end up doing structural damage to our portfolio. So I would say, think about it like this, folks. When it comes to your emotions, especially, like I said, you're just getting started, let your time horizon and your risk tolerance drive the train. If what's risky to Tony might not be risky to you, and vice versa. But look at it from a little longer perspective. You've got time to overcome. If you've got 15, 20 years, if you've only got 5 or 10 years, maybe start pulling back a little bit, and maybe start balancing your growth a little bit with a little downside protection, maybe some additional fixed income, some cash, etc.
Sure.
But you've got to balance your portfolio based on your age, your risk tolerance, and your targets.
You have to have a balance, and that way, if you have money, you have to leave some in growth, as you said, and not get emotional and pull out when the market's down. But you also have to have some safety, some principal protected funds to pull from when the market is down, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, and if you want to open a Robinhood account, and I'm not recommending this, I am throwing this disclaimer out there. This is not what I'm recommending for you to do. But if your buddy that is sitting next to you at your job or whatever says he has a hot stock tip or a penny stock that's going to do whatever, and you want to open a Robinhood account, throw a few $100 at it and just let it ride because that's like money you go to Vegas you wouldn't miss, I get it. Do what you want to do. But for the most part, you probably need to think about investing in strong companies, indices versus individual stocks in a lot of cases. Use what you have.
Dividend-paying
Yeah,
stocks,
use what
things
you
like that.
have
Yeah.
to create that floor, that wise investment. And then if you want to take a couple shots or you want to go try to speculate on whatever with a small portion, I get it. Right. I mean, who's going to stop you? I can't make that decision for you. That's only something you can. But at the end of the day, you don't need to use everything in your arsenal to really try to hit that target. So,
right.
But folks, that is just the behavioral side. There is one last part, and Tony, this is what we're going to end with, and it's really something that we've been talking to their parents about for years and years and years. It's the fact that a lot of Gen Xers right now are faced with being the sandwich generation, just like their parents were faced with being the sandwich generation as well.
Yeah.
It's because now, if you're in your mid 40s or even early 50s, you're probably faced with helping kids continue to maybe get educations.
Yep.
Maybe you're helping pay even if you're not paying tuition, maybe you're paying their rent, you're paying whatever. Or maybe the kids have moved back home, right? Maybe they didn't come out of college and they're trying to get some debt paid down, and maybe that way you're assisting them and you're covering the groceries and the bills and all that stuff, and maybe here's a few $100 here and there, little Jimmy or little Susie, and go and have some dinner on me, right? You're still supporting them to some degree,
right.
But then you also have your parents. And folks, that is something that your parents probably had to deal with on some level, because their parents may not have had things like long-term care insurance, or maybe they didn't have the savings that they needed to carry them through, and your parents were forced to now make the decision that you're probably going to be faced with, which is what happens when your parents get a little bit older. Then you have to start kicking in and making sure they go to the doctor and making sure they have the things, and might be buying groceries. It might be paying their rent. I mean, you're now forced to maybe get into that situation. And that's really stressful as well, Tony. And that also can really put a hindrance on the Gen X ability to save, because if you have money going out in both of those directions, you compound that with inflation, it looks like a pretty daunting task, right? I mean, it can get overwhelming, and I completely get it. But that's really where we have to, I hate to say it, we have to draw the line, right? Because I'm not telling you to kick your kids out and say, you know what, live on the street because you're not living with me anymore. Although sometimes that may be what you want to say. Probably not what you're going to say. But let's say that you do have that situation where you're still helping the kids. Well, folks, your kids have 40, just like you did. They got 30, 40, 45 years probably to work towards their goal. Maybe think about letting them be the baby bird you kind of usher out the nest, because they're going to be able to provide for themselves over time. They may be like you and start with some challenges, but eventually they'll work through it. Now, your parents, on the other hand, that's going to be a different situation because they don't probably have that ability. So, um, one of the things I would encourage you to do is have some of those hard conversations with your parents about their assets, about their finances.
Mhm.
See what you guys can do working with a financial professional to go ahead and start some of that planning process so that maybe that lessens the blow on them, and it also lessens the blow on you,
Yeah.
because you're and we've talked a lot about more about emotions over this show than we have or did in the past show. And that's because, folks, money is something they always say, you shouldn't make an emotional decision about money, or don't let emotions mix in with your money. But I can't think of a more emotional conversation other than your relatives, your parents, your family, than money. And it's just something we have to work through. And it's something that if you don't go ahead and start having these hard conversations, it can really weigh you down emotionally and psychologically. And it may cause you to make decisions that maybe you wouldn't have made otherwise, that could probably help you avoid mistakes. And that's really what it's all about, Tony, is how do we avoid mistakes in retirement?
Yeah. Yeah, and avoiding mistakes is huge. That's what we want to do, and that's why you're going through this. I really relate to the sandwich generation portion because I saw it happen with my parents and their folks, and now I'm dealing with it. Both of my parents are in long-term care and need constant care. Plus, I'm an only child, so and I have adult children that are struggling. They're just finishing up college, out of college, and so, yeah, it's serious, and I wouldn't wanna do this without a financial plan for myself, for my wife and I, and you need to work with a trusted financial professional. So, Travis, how can our listeners and viewers out there get a hold of you to set up that no charge, no obligation consultation?
Absolutely, Tony. Give us a call, 877-269-0839. That's 877-269-0839. Another thing I think would be money well spent and time well spent is, Tony, we offer educational classes. It may not be a bad idea if you are in the Gen X category. Make sure your parents are going and getting education on how to
Yes.
improve their situation, so that does not translate over to you. And if you're getting to your 55 to 60-year-old time frame also, it might not be a bad idea for you to also start a bit earlier, because the earlier you start, the more options you have. If you wait until later, or wait until you're about to retire, you do not have the same amount at your disposal as far as weapons you can use to attack your retirement. You need to think through this. Take the time,
Yeah.
55 to 60, start early. And if your parents have not begun to coordinate a plan, then they need to do that also. Give us a call, 877-269-0839. We've got about 9 more offerings, I think, for the rest of the year. That would be money and time well spent.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, go to one of those workshops, classes. I think that's great. Again, that number 877-269-0839. Travis, great show today. Listeners and viewers, that does it for today's episode of Navigating Your Retirement with our host, Travis Chance.